Hey there. Welcome back to Science Lullaby, the place where the whole strange, brilliant, endlessly surprising universe agrees to slow down for a little while, settle in beside you, and tell you something worth knowing before you drift off. Tonight, get comfortable. Pull whatever blanket you have a little closer. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing go slow and easy. Because what we're going to explore together over the next couple of hours is something that honestly might change how you see the world when you wake up tomorrow morning. We're going to talk about monkeys. And before you picture the classic image, the mischievous little creature swinging through a cartoon jungle, I want you to hold on. Because the real monkeys, the living, breathing, thinking, feeling, arguing, problem-solving, culturally transmitting monkeys that actually share this planet with us, are so much more interesting than any cartoon could ever suggest. Monkeys have been washing their food, cracking nuts with stone tools, outwitting human problem solvers, building centuries-long cultural traditions, raising alarm about specific predators using what amounts to a primitive vocabulary, and throwing their cucumber slices back at scientists when they feel they're being paid unfairly. They are not what most of us imagine. And over the next several hours, we're going to discover 100 mind-blowing facts about them, woven together into one long, slow, beautiful journey through the science, the behavior, the evolution, and the everyday brilliance of our distant primate cousins. So let the room get quiet, let the day go, and let's begin. Section 1. The Primate Family Tree. What is a monkey? Before we can truly appreciate just how remarkable monkeys are, we need to understand what they actually are, and perhaps more importantly, what they are not. Because the word monkey is one of those wonderfully slippery terms that means slightly different things to different people, and getting the definitions right opens up a whole world of nuance. Fact 1. Monkeys are primates, members of the order primates. But not all primates are monkeys. The broader primate family includes lemurs, lorises, galagos, tarsiers, monkeys, and apes. Humans are apes. Chimpanzees are apes. Gorillas, orangutans, gibbons, all apes. Monkeys are a separate and distinct group within the primates, and the easiest way to tell them apart from apes is by the presence of a tail. Almost all monkeys have tails. Apes do not. Fact 2. There are roughly 260 to 300 recognized species of monkeys in the world, depending on how you count them, and how taxonomists classify the most recently described populations. That number continues to grow as new species are formally described, especially from remote rainforests where scientific surveys are still relatively sparse. The diversity within this group is extraordinary. They range in size from creatures you could hold in the palm of your hand to animals that could give a large dog a serious run for its money. Fact 3. Monkeys are divided into two great groups based on geography: Old World monkeys and New World monkeys. Old World monkeys are found across Africa and Asia, and they include some of the most well-known species: baboons, macaques, mandrills, langurs, colobus monkeys, and vervet monkeys. New World monkeys are found exclusively in Central and South America, and they include marmosets, tamarins, howler monkeys, spider monkeys, capuchins, squirrel monkeys, and owl monkeys. These two groups have been evolving separately for roughly 35 million years, and over that time they've developed some fascinating differences alongside their many similarities. Fact 4. The simplest physical distinction between Old World and New World monkeys involves their noses. Old World monkeys have narrow noses with downward-pointing nostrils, a shape that looks more like our own human noses. New World monkeys have wider, flatter noses with nostrils that open to the sides. Scientists actually use this to name the groups. Old World monkeys are called catarrhines, from the Greek for downward-nosed, and New World monkeys are called platyrrhines, meaning flat-nosed. Fact 5. Old World monkeys have hard, calloused sitting pads on their hindquarters called ischial callosities. These are essentially built-in seat cushions, thickened, roughened patches of skin that make it comfortable to sit on hard branches or rocky ground for extended periods. New World monkeys lack these. If you ever see a monkey sitting on a branch with the particular easy composure of someone settled into a well-padded chair, it's almost certainly an Old World species. Fact 6. One of the most beloved distinctions between the two groups involves prehensile tails. Many New World monkeys, particularly spider monkeys, woolly monkeys, howler monkeys, and capuchins, have prehensile tails that can grip branches with enough strength to support the animal's entire body weight. The underside of the tail even has a bare, ridged patch of skin like a fingerprint, sensitive enough to feel textures and surfaces. No Old World monkey has this ability. Their tails are non-prehensile, used mainly for balance, or in some species like macaques, barely present at all. Let's slow down for a moment and think about what that means. A spider monkey swinging through a rainforest canopy doesn't just have 4 limbs, it effectively has 5. That prehensile tail is as functional as a hand. It can reach around a branch while the monkey's hands are occupied with food. It can anchor the monkey during a leap. A spider monkey navigating a 100-foot canopy is doing so with 5 functional grasping appendages, which makes the acrobatics involved almost incomprehensibly fluid. Fact 7. The evolutionary divergence between Old World and New World monkeys is ancient enough that the two groups arrived at similar solutions to similar problems completely independently. Color vision is a perfect example. Old World monkeys, like humans, typically have trichromatic color vision. They see 3 primary colors, allowing them to detect subtle differences between, say, a ripe red fruit and an unripe green one. Many New World monkeys, by contrast, have a more complex arrangement. The gene responsible for color sensitivity sits on the X chromosome in New World species, meaning males are often dichromatic, seeing 2 primary colors, while females can be trichromatic or dichromatic depending on which versions of the gene they carry. But howler monkeys strikingly have evolved full trichromacy through a completely independent gene duplication, a convergent solution to the same evolutionary challenge. Fact 8. Monkeys first appear in the fossil record approximately 35 to 40 million years ago. The ancient lineage leading to New World monkeys almost certainly originated in Africa, with ancestral primates somehow crossing the Atlantic Ocean to reach South America. This is one of the great puzzles of evolutionary biogeography. The Atlantic was narrower then than it is today, but it was still a vast open ocean. The leading theory involves the ancestors of New World monkeys rafting across on floating mats of vegetation, drifting islands of tangled roots and trees that large rivers sometimes sweep out to sea during floods. It sounds almost impossible, but the evidence consistently points in this direction, and at least some primates and other mammals appear to have made the crossing. Fact 9. Simians, the group that includes both monkeys and apes, diverged from the tarsiers, their sister group, around 70 million years ago. To put that in perspective, the world 70 million years ago still had non-avian dinosaurs. The split between Old World monkeys and the lineage that would eventually lead to apes and to us happened roughly 25 million years ago, during the Oligocene epoch, in a world where the continents were gradually drifting toward their current positions and the global climate was cooling. Fact 110. The word monkey itself has an interesting etymology. According to the online etymology dictionary, it may derive from a German version of the Reynard the Fox fable, published around 1580, in which a character named Monarchy appears as the son of Martin the ape. In early English, the words ape and monkey were often used interchangeably. The 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica notes that ape was simply a synonym for monkey, or occasionally used specifically for tailless species. The clean distinction we use today is relatively modern.
Fact 11. In terms of ecological success, Old World monkeys of the subfamily Cercopithecinae are, after humans, the most successful colonizers of non-forested habitats among all primates. While many primates are tightly bound to forest environments, macaques and baboons thrive in everything from tropical rainforests to snow-covered mountain ranges, arid savannas, coastal mangroves, and city centers. The behavioral flexibility required for this range of environments reflects a cognitive flexibility we'll explore in detail throughout this journey. Fact 12. The highest-dwelling non-human primate is the gelada, a species found exclusively in the highlands of Ethiopia. Geladas have been documented living at elevations up to 5,000 meters. That's over 16,000 feet above sea level. At those altitudes, temperatures can plunge well below freezing at night, and the air is noticeably thin. The gelada survives largely by grazing on grasses and herbs, a dietary strategy almost unique among primates, most of whom prefer fruits, leaves, and insects. Their adaptation to high-altitude grassy plateaus makes them one of the most ecologically distinctive monkeys on Earth. Now, with that foundation in place, this magnificent, ancient, wildly diverse group of animals, let's move closer. Let's look at the animals themselves. Section 2. The amazing monkey body. The monkey body is a study in elegant engineering. Over tens of millions of years of evolution, these animals have developed physical adaptations that allow them to thrive in some of the most complex three-dimensional environments on Earth. Dense forest canopies where a misstep means a potentially fatal fall, and where the ability to navigate quickly, accurately, and with exquisite motor control makes the difference between a full belly and an empty one, between safety and a predator's jaws. Fact 13. The smallest monkey in the world is the pygmy marmoset, a tiny New World primate native to the western Amazon basin. Adult pygmy marmosets have a head and body length of just 117 to 152 millimeters, roughly 4.5 to 6 inches. They weigh between 85 and 140 grams, which is about the weight of a small apple or a large egg. A pygmy marmoset could comfortably sit on your palm with room to spare, and yet despite their diminutive size, they are fully functional, socially complex, highly intelligent primates. They live in family groups. They communicate with vocalizations pitched so high that much of their range falls outside the frequency humans can hear, and they have a specialized diet that involves gouging holes in tree bark to stimulate the flow of gum and sap. Fact 14. The largest monkey in the world is the mandrill, a dramatically colored Old World primate from the dense rainforests of Central Africa. Adult male mandrills reach up to 95 centimeters in body length and can weigh between 19 and 30 kilograms, roughly 42 to 66 pounds. To put the size difference between the pygmy marmoset and the mandrill in perspective, you could fit approximately 200 pygmy marmosets into the body mass of a single large male mandrill. Fact 15. The mandrill holds another title beyond just being the largest monkey. It is considered one of the most colorful mammals on Earth. Adult males have faces painted in vivid, saturated blues and reds. The blue sections are found along the nose ridge and cheeks, while the nose itself and surrounding skin glow in deep scarlet. This coloration extends to their hindquarters as well, where the skin displays similarly brilliant hues. These colors are not produced by pigments in the conventional sense. The blue coloration in particular is the result of structural coloration, the same physical phenomenon that gives peacock feathers their iridescence, produced by the arrangement of collagen fibers in the facial skin that scatter light in specific wavelengths. The intensity of a male mandrill's coloration is directly correlated with his testosterone levels and his position in the social hierarchy. The more dominant the male, the brighter his colors.
Fact 16. The sexual dimorphism in mandrills. The physical difference between males and females is the most extreme of any living primate. Male mandrills are roughly twice the size of females and possess canine teeth that can reach up to 4.5 centimeters long. Females have much less vivid coloration and considerably smaller body size. In many animal species, pronounced sexual dimorphism correlates with intense competition among males for breeding access, and mandrills are no exception. Fact 17. Monkeys have forward-facing eyes, a defining primate trait that provides binocular vision with significant depth perception. The overlapping fields of view from both eyes allow the brain to precisely calculate distances, crucial for an animal leaping between branches 30 meters above the forest floor. Unlike the more laterally placed eyes of many prey animals, which prioritize a wide field of view for predator detection, monkey eyes are oriented to maximize the precision of three-dimensional spatial judgment. Fact 18. Most primate hands, including monkey hands, have the same basic structure, 5 digits, with flexible joints, sensitive fingertips equipped with flat nails rather than claws, and in many species, an opposable or semi-opposable thumb. This general-purpose tool hand is one of the most versatile structures in the animal kingdom. Old World monkeys typically have thumbs capable of true opposition, allowing them to handle and manipulate small objects with considerable precision. Some New World monkeys have reduced thumbs or lack functional opposition, though they compensate with extraordinary grip strength and the utility of that prehensile tail. Fact 19. An exception to the nail rule exists in the marmosets and tamarins, a family of small New World monkeys that retain claws on all digits except the big toe, which bears a nail. These claw-like structures, called tegulae, are specialized adaptations for clinging vertically to tree trunks, the posture marmosets adopt when gouging bark to access sap. It's a beautiful example of how a broadly shared primate trait can be modified in a specific lineage to meet a specific ecological challenge. Fact 20. The proboscis monkey, found only on the island of Borneo, has the most dramatically developed nose of any primate, and arguably any primate you'll ever see and be momentarily startled by. Adult males have large, pendulous, bulbous noses that can hang down past their mouths. The nose is thought to function as a resonating chamber that amplifies and modifies vocalizations, making male calls more impressive and perhaps helping females assess a male's quality. Females have smaller, upturned noses by comparison. The proboscis monkey is also unusual for another reason. It is one of the few colubrine monkeys that regularly swims. Groups living near rivers will readily enter the water to cross from one bank to another, sometimes even in the presence of crocodiles. Fact 21. Howler monkeys have enlarged hyoid bones, a U-shaped bone at the base of the tongue, that function as biological amplifiers for their vocalizations. The hyoid in a male howler is so dramatically developed that it forms a hollow resonating chamber that dramatically magnifies the sound produced by the vocal cords. The resulting call is one of the loudest produced by any land animal on Earth, and it can travel through thick rainforest for distances of up to 3 miles. Some sources report up to 20 miles under ideal conditions. Interestingly, there is a trade-off. Males with larger hyoids have smaller testes, and vice versa. Groups with only a single dominant male tend to feature males with large hyoids who rely on vocal competition to keep rivals away, while groups with multiple males favor large testes for sperm competition. Fact 22. Squirrel monkeys have the largest brain-to-body ratio of any primate. While absolute brain size in primates scales roughly with body size, the squirrel monkey's brain is proportionally enormous relative to its small body. This has long been noted by researchers studying primate brain evolution, though the precise implications for cognitive ability remain a subject of ongoing study.
Fact 23. The spider monkey is arguably the most acrobatic of all monkeys, and its anatomy reflects this perfectly. Spider monkeys have extraordinarily long, slender limbs and a long, fully prehensile tail, giving them the 5-limbed quality we mentioned earlier. Their hands have long hook-like fingers and a vestigial or absent thumb, a specialization that allows them to swing hand over hand through branches, a movement called brachiation, which is more commonly associated with apes, with exceptional speed and efficiency. When a spider monkey moves at full speed through a forest canopy, it can cover ground faster than a human running on the forest floor below. Fact 24. Many Old World monkeys have expandable cheek pouches, internal storage pockets inside their cheeks that allow them to collect food quickly and carry it somewhere safer to eat. Macaques and cercopithecines use these pouches with remarkable efficiency, stuffing their cheeks until they bulge and then retreating to a quieter spot to process the food at leisure. The capacity of these pouches can approximately equal the volume of the monkey's entire stomach. Fact 25. The Patter's monkey, a long-legged ground-dwelling species found in the open savannas of sub-Saharan Africa, is the fastest primate on Earth. Patter's monkeys have been clocked at speeds exceeding 55 kilometers per hour, roughly 34 miles per hour. They achieve this speed through a body plan quite different from most monkeys: longer legs, a leaner build, and a stride pattern that more closely resembles a dog or a cheetah than the typical primate loping gait. Living in open terrain where there are few trees to climb and many large predators, speed is a Patter's monkey's primary defense strategy. Fact 26. Preliminary. The coloration of male mandrills is not static. It brightens during periods of social excitement or dominance assertion, and can fade during times of stress, illness, or social defeat. This means a male mandrill's face is, in a very real sense, a live broadcast of his current social and physiological status. Rival males can read his condition at a glance. Females can assess his health and dominance in an instant. The face is not just colorful, it is dynamic, communicative, and continuously updated by the animal's own biology. Let's also think for a moment about what it would actually be like to encounter these animals in their natural habitat. Imagine standing at the edge of a primary rainforest in Gabon just after dawn, when the morning light is still low and golden, slipping in between the enormous buttress roots of the cathedral trees. And then, from somewhere ahead, you hear a sound, a low rhythmic grunt, repeated, building into something more complex, a whole chorus of vocalizations coming from multiple directions at once. The forest is suddenly full of movement. An adult male mandrill steps into a shaft of light, and you stop breathing. His face looks like a bruise painted over with a sunset, blues and purples and reds, vivid as a wound, as ripe fruit, as a gas flame. He is 3 feet tall, and he weighs as much as a large dog, and he is absolutely magnificently himself. That experience of suddenly confronting the full reality of another mind, another life, another intelligence, looking back at you from inside the architecture of an ancient forest, is what monkey research at its best is always trying to understand. Now, before we leave the animal body entirely and step into the social world, there are a few more physical facts worth dwelling on, because they connect in interesting ways to the cognitive story we're building. The prehensile tail of New World monkeys, that fifth limb, that sentient appendage with its own fingerprint-like texture pads, is not just mechanically useful. It represents an investment of neural real estate. A significant portion of the monkey's brain is devoted to processing sensory information from the tail and coordinating its movements. The tail is, neurologically, almost a second hand, and brains are expensive. The resources devoted to processing tail sensation and movement are resources the animal's evolutionary history has judged worth paying for, which tells you something about how central the tail is to how New World monkeys navigate their world. Similarly, the elaborate color vision of Old World monkeys, trichromatic vision that distinguishes subtle differences in hue across the visible spectrum, represents a specific neural investment. The retina contains more cone cells than the retinas of most mammals, and the visual cortex devotes substantial processing power to color discrimination. This is because in a fruit-bearing tropical forest, the difference between a ripe fruit and an unripe one is often primarily a color difference, and the ability to see it accurately and quickly is directly tied to caloric intake and survival. These physical adaptations, the tail, the vision, the hands, the sitting pads, are the outer surface of a cognitive and behavioral world that is extraordinarily rich. They are the tools through which monkey intelligence acts on the world, and they set the stage for everything we're about to explore.
Section 3. The Social World, Troops, Hierarchies, and Grooming. If you spent a day watching a troop of monkeys, you would quickly come away with one overwhelming impression. These are intensely social animals. The social life of monkeys is rich, complicated, emotionally textured, and in some ways eerily familiar. Alliances are formed and broken. Friendships are maintained through years of quiet mutual support. Grudges are held. Younger animals watch elders to learn what to do and what to avoid. Mothers and daughters maintain close bonds for life. And through the seemingly simple act of grooming, sitting close to another monkey and working through their fur, individuals build and maintain the social relationships that are, for a monkey, the fundamental infrastructure of survival. Fact 26. Most monkey species live in structured social groups commonly called troops. The size of these troops varies enormously between species and even between populations of the same species. Some species live in small family groups of just a few individuals. Others form troops of dozens or even hundreds. Mandrills hold the record for the largest known cohesive primate social groups. Studies in Lope National Park in Gabon have documented mandrill hordes averaging 620 individuals, with some groups reaching 845, making them potentially the largest stable social groups recorded for any wild primate other than humans. Fact 27. Within a troop, individuals typically exist within a social hierarchy. In many Old World monkey species, including macaques and baboons, this hierarchy is relatively linear and stable. Each individual has a defined rank,
and rank determines access to preferred food, preferred resting spots, and mating opportunities. Rank is often inherited maternally. The daughter of a high-ranking female typically inherits a rank just below her mother, while lower-ranking females produce daughters who remain low in the hierarchy. This creates stable, multi-generational social structures where a female's position in the group is shaped as much by her ancestry as by her individual competitive ability. Fact 228. Male and female hierarchies often operate somewhat independently. In many Cercopithecine species, males transfer between groups at adolescence, joining new troops as immigrants. This means males typically spend their lives in groups where they have fewer long-term relationships and must establish their position through competition and coalition building with relative strangers, while females often spend their entire lives surrounded by close relatives, mothers, sisters, daughters, with deep, enduring social bonds. Fact 29. Grooming is the social currency of monkey society. While grooming does have genuine hygienic benefits, removing parasites, dead skin, and debris, its primary function in most monkey species is social. When a monkey grooms another, it is investing time and physical attention in a relationship. It is saying through action rather than words, something like, "I value your company, I am not a threat to you, and I would appreciate your tolerance and support." Higher-ranking individuals receive more grooming than they give. Lower-ranking individuals groom upward, investing in access to powerful allies who can protect them, support them in conflicts, and share resources. Fact 30. Research has shown that grooming actually has measurable physiological effects. When monkeys groom or are groomed, their bodies release endorphins, the same brain chemicals associated with pleasure and pain relief in humans. A monkey being groomed shows signs of reduced heart rate and lowered cortisol levels. Grooming, in other words, doesn't just feel socially good, it feels physically good. The biological mechanism that makes social bonding pleasurable appears to have deep roots in primate evolution. Fact 31. Monkey troops often demonstrate complex coalition behavior, situations where two or more individuals cooperate to challenge or defeat a dominant individual who could not be beaten alone. These coalitions require calculation. An individual must assess whether a potential ally is likely to provide useful support, whether the costs of antagonizing a dominant animal are outweighed by the potential gains, and whether the alliance is likely to endure. This is not simple reactive aggression, it is social strategy. Fact 32. Reconciliation behavior. The tendency for former opponents to approach each other and engage in affiliative behaviors after a conflict has been documented in many monkey species. After a fight, combatants will often groom each other, sit close together, or exchange gentle touches. This reconciliation appears to reduce post-conflict tension and helps maintain functional relationships in a group where individuals must continue interacting and cooperating despite occasional conflicts. The fact that monkeys invest in repairing damaged relationships suggests that they place value on those relationships. They are worth the effort of reconciliation. Fact 33. Vervet monkey females maintain long-term friendships that span years and provide measurable fitness benefits. Females with more grooming partners and stronger social bonds have higher survival rates and produce more surviving offspring than socially isolated females. The social network is not just emotionally important to vervets, it is biologically essential to their reproductive success. Fact 34. Japanese macaques have been observed engaging in what researchers describe as stone play, a non-adaptive behavior with no obvious survival function that nevertheless spreads through troops by social transmission. First observed in a troop near Kyoto in 1979, stone play involves picking up stones and manipulating them in various ways. Gathering them, rolling them between the hands, clacking them together, carrying them around, and cuddling them.
The behavior spread through 49% of the troop by 1984, primarily through young animals who then passed it on to their own offspring. It serves no clear purpose. Monkeys simply seem to enjoy playing with stones. Fact 35. Play is a significant feature of monkey social life, particularly among juveniles. Young monkeys spend substantial portions of their day in social play, chasing, wrestling, and engaging in mock-aggressive interactions that build physical coordination, social skills, and relationships. Research on howler monkeys has found that adult howlers also spend meaningful time in social play, more time than would be expected in a species typically characterized as relatively sedate. Play in adults appears to function as a mechanism for reducing social tension and maintaining group cohesion. Fact 36. Monkey social groups often have distinct personalities at the group level, what researchers sometimes call group behavioral styles, that appear to persist over time independent of the specific individuals that compose the group. Different troops of the same species living in similar environments may consistently differ in their level of boldness, their tolerance of strangers, their tendency toward innovation, and their frequency of affiliative versus aggressive interactions. These group-level personalities may be transmitted through social learning from one generation to the next. Fact 37. Social. The complexity of monkey social hierarchies becomes even more impressive when you consider that individuals must track not just their own relationship with every other group member, but also the relationships between those other members. To navigate a large primate social group effectively, an individual needs a constantly updated mental model of who outranks whom, who is allied with whom, who has recently had a conflict with whom, and how these dynamics affect their own strategies. This is essentially a living, shifting social database, and maintaining it accurately requires significant cognitive resources. In vervet monkeys and baboons, for example, experiments have shown that individuals respond appropriately to eavesdrop social information. They adjust their behavior toward a third party based on having watched that third party interact with others. If monkey A watches monkey B aggressively displace monkey C, monkey A subsequently behaves more submissively toward B, even though B has not directly interacted with A. The individual is using secondhand social information to update their model of the local hierarchy. That is a cognitively sophisticated act.
Fact 38. Social. The intensity of grooming relationships in many monkey species is a surprisingly accurate predictor of who will come to whose aid in a conflict. Macaques and vervets, who invest heavily in grooming particular partners, are more likely to receive support from those partners when fights break out. The social bond built through grooming, the endorphin-mediated time-intensive investment in another animal's comfort, translates into a form of biological insurance. When trouble comes, your grooming partners are more likely to stand with you. Researchers have studied the economics of grooming with impressive rigor, finding that grooming time invested in a relationship is roughly proportional to the value of the relationship in terms of protective coalitions and resource access. Lower-ranking individuals who cannot offer physical protection can still offer something valuable. Extensive grooming and high-ranking individuals who receive that grooming are more tolerant of the groomer in return. It is, in a very literal sense, a service economy. Fact 39. Social. The concept of friendship in non-human primates has moved from metaphor to scientific category. In baboons particularly, long-term field studies, some running for decades at the same site, have documented what can only be described as genuine friendships between unrelated individuals, pairs of animals who consistently prefer each other's company, groom each other extensively, remain in proximity during rest and travel, and actively support each other in conflicts.
These baboon friendships are not just between females. Some of the most enduring pairs in the literature are between adult females and specific adult males who are not the fathers of the female's offspring. These friendships appear to have real fitness consequences. Female baboons with more stable, enduring social bonds live longer and produce more surviving offspring than socially isolated females. The social network is quite literally a survival resource in primate life, and the same is almost certainly true in the evolutionary history of the lineage that produced us. Fact 40. Social. One of the most touching aspects of monkey social behavior is the care extended to infants. In most monkey species, infants are objects of intense social attention and fascination. Not just their mothers, other adult females, juveniles, and even males will spend time near infants, attempting to touch or hold them, watching them with what can only be described as interest. Allow-mothering. The care of infants by females other than the mother occurs in many species and provides benefits to both the infant, who gains additional protection and social exposure, and the allow-mother, who gains parenting experience that may improve her own future reproductive success. In the communally breeding species like marmosets and tamarins, infant care is a full group effort. The breeding female may nurse the infants, but infant carrying, which is physically demanding for these tiny animals, since marmoset twins together often weigh as much as or more than the mother, is shared by all group members including the breeding male, older siblings, and unrelated helpers. Without this cooperative care, marmoset and tamarin infants would not survive. Section 4. Monkey talk. Vocalizations and semantic communication. In the long and ongoing search for the evolutionary origins of human language, few animals have been studied as intensively as monkeys. And what researchers have found over decades of careful fieldwork and laboratory experiments is something genuinely astonishing. Monkeys don't just make noise, they communicate meaning. They have calls that refer to things in the external world. They adjust what they say based on context. They combine sounds in ways that create new meanings, and younger animals learn the rules of the calling system from their elders, much as human children learn the words and grammar of a language. Fact 37. The most famous example of monkey semantic communication is the alarm call system of the vervet monkey. Vervets live in open savanna environments in East Africa where they face multiple different kinds of predators, including leopards, which attack from the ground, martial eagles, which swoop from the sky, and pythons, which lurk in the grass.
Fact 38. What makes the vervet alarm call system particularly remarkable is that the calls appear to function as genuine referential signals, labels that refer to external objects or categories in the world. In a classic study by Dorothy Cheney and Robert Seyfarth published in Science in 1980, the researchers played tape recordings of the alarm calls back to vervets when no predator was actually present. The monkeys responded to the recordings exactly as they would have to a real alarm. Climbing trees for the leopard call, looking up for the eagle call, scanning the ground for the snake call. This demonstrated that the meaning was genuinely encoded in the call itself, not derived from seeing the predator or watching another monkey respond. Fact 39. Young vervet monkeys are not born with perfect alarm calling ability. Infants and juveniles make classification errors, giving the leopard alarm to various mammals, the eagle alarm to birds that aren't eagles, and the snake alarm to snake-like objects. Over time, through experience, and by observing the reactions of older animals, young vervets gradually refine their classifications until they become accurate. This developmental trajectory mirrors, in a simplified way, the process by which human children learn vocabulary, starting with overgeneralizations and progressively narrowing to adult accuracy. Fact 40. Recent research with West African green monkeys, the closest living relatives of East African vervets, has shown that these animals can rapidly learn the meaning of entirely new sounds. In one study, researchers flew a drone over a group of green monkeys. The monkeys had no evolutionary history with drones, of course. It was a completely novel aerial threat. When the drone sounds were played back to the animals later, they responded with alarm calls and sky-scanning behavior appropriate for an aerial predator, suggesting they had quickly learned to associate the drone's sound with potential danger from above. They had essentially learned a new word in a single encounter. Fact 41. Squirrel monkeys are among the most vocally complex of all monkey species. Studies have documented more than 25 distinct vocalizations in their repertoire, including sounds that function as alarms, food calls, contact calls, and social signals. These calls range acoustically from barks and peeps to purrs, screams, and complex chirps that defy simple description. The variety and context specificity of squirrel monkey calls is extraordinary for an animal with a brain the size of a walnut. Fact 42. The howler monkey's territorial call, the booming guttural roar that echoes through the forest at dawn and dusk, serves primarily as a long-distance communication system between neighboring groups. Rather than physically confronting rival troops, howler groups advertise their presence and location through these vocalizations. When two groups hear each other, they typically respond by calling back, each group essentially saying, "We are here. This area is occupied." This acoustic territorial display reduces the need for costly physical confrontations. Interestingly, howler monkey calls were so impressive to the ancient Maya that they were revered as divine. Mayan art depicts howler monkeys as gods of writing, music, and creativity.
Fact 43. Campbell's monkeys, a small West African guenon, appear to have a rudimentary grammatical system. They produce a specific call, crack, as an alarm for leopards, but they can also produce kraku, the same root sound with a suffix attached, which functions as a more generalized warning. Similarly, their eagle alarm call hoke becomes hoku for a more general disturbance. Researchers have described this as a primitive form of morphology, the use of a consistent modifier to shift the meaning of a root signal. This is, at a very simple level, something like grammar. Fact 44. Beyond vocalizations, monkeys communicate through an elaborate system of facial expressions, body postures, and gestures. The range of monkey facial expressions is impressive. An open-mouth threat face, mouth wide open, teeth largely hidden, signals aggression. The fear grin, teeth bared in a silent grimace, signals submission or anxiety. The lip smack, a rapid rhythmic movement of the lips, signals friendly intent. A direct, unwavering stare is threatening. Looking away and making oneself small signals deference. These expressions are not culturally learned. They are broadly consistent across macaque species and appear to be evolutionarily conserved. Fact 45. Male baboons have been documented using objects to produce rhythmic drumming sounds, banging their hands or objects against surfaces to create rhythmic signals that attract attention and communicate social information. This is a form of acoustic communication that doesn't involve the vocal apparatus at all, and it hints at the early roots of behaviors that in humans eventually led to musical percussion. Fact 46. Gelada baboons, the high-altitude grass grazers of Ethiopia, have a vocal repertoire so complex and rapid that researchers have described it as reminiscent of human speech in its rhythm and pace. Geladas produce a rapid series of vocalizations involving lip movements, tongue sounds, and rapid pitch changes that sound startlingly like a person talking excitedly in a foreign language.
Studies have documented 20 to 30 distinct gelada vocal types. The similarity to human speech patterns appears to arise from convergent evolution. Both geladas and humans developed rapid lip-mediated vocalizations rather than shared ancestry, but the parallels are striking enough that gelada vocalizations have been studied as possible insights into how human speech evolved. Fact 47. Calm. The titi monkey, a small New World primate from South America, has taken semantic communication in a fascinating direction. Titi monkeys use calls in combinations, pairing different call types in specific sequences to create meanings that the individual calls do not have alone. One call type used alone signals one class of predator. The same call type followed by a different call type signals something more specific about the predator's location or behavior. Researchers have described this as a form of proto-syntax, a very primitive system of combining meaningful units to create more specific messages than any single unit could convey. The gap between this and human language is still vast, but the existence of even this simple combinatorial logic in a small monkey is genuinely remarkable. Fact 48. Contact calls, soft, quiet vocalizations that allow group members to stay in acoustic contact with each other while traveling through dense vegetation, are a feature of nearly all group-living monkey species. These calls allow individuals to monitor the location of the group without needing visual contact. When group members become separated or when a fast-moving group travels through thick cover, contact calls are the thread that keeps the social fabric intact. Some species produce contact calls continuously while moving. Others use them in specific circumstances when visual contact is lost.
There is something quietly beautiful about the idea of a group of monkeys moving through a dense, dark rainforest interior, connected to each other by nothing more than a constant soft exchange of small sounds, each individual announcing its presence, confirming its membership in the group, and reassuring its companions that the world is okay. In a forest where you can barely see 3 meters ahead, sound is the social glue that holds the group together. The use of tools has long been considered one of the hallmarks of advanced intelligence. For most of the 20th century, tool use was considered a uniquely human trait, until Jane Goodall's observations of chimpanzees using grass stems to fish termites from mounds upended that assumption in the 1960s. Since then, the list of tool-using animals has grown considerably, and among the most fascinating and most studied cases outside of apes are the capuchin monkeys of Brazil. Fact 47. Capuchin monkeys are the most accomplished tool users among all New World monkeys, and they rank among the most sophisticated tool users of any non-ape species on Earth. In the wild, bearded capuchins use stone hammers and stone anvils to crack open palm nuts. The nuts they process are among the toughest found in any monkey's diet. Some species of palm nut are harder than any material naturally available to the capuchins except stone itself. In some populations, the stones used as hammers weigh between 25 and 50% of the monkey's own body weight, a significant physical challenge that requires not just the intent to crack a nut, but the physical strength to lift, aim, and drive a stone of that mass accurately. Fact 48. Capuchin stone tool use was first formally documented in wild populations in 2003, a surprisingly recent discovery for such a dramatic behavior. Since then, researchers have found multiple wild populations using stone tools, and the practice appears to be widespread across bearded capuchin populations in Brazil's Cerrado and Caatinga regions. The fact that this behavior was unobserved by scientists for so long is a reminder of how much of the natural world remains genuinely undiscovered, even for species we thought we understood. Fact 49.
Archaeological excavations at capuchin nut-cracking sites in the Serra da Capivara National Park in northeast Brazil have yielded stone tools, stone hammers and anvils with the characteristic wear patterns produced by nut-cracking that date back at least 600 to 700 years. These are among the oldest known examples of monkey tool use anywhere in the world, and they predate the arrival of European colonizers in the Americas. This means that approximately 100 generations of capuchin monkeys have maintained the tradition of stone tool use at this site, passing it down from parent to offspring through social learning over the course of centuries. Fact 50. The capuchin stone tools from these archaeological sites are strikingly similar to the stone tools in use today. When researchers compared modern capuchin hammerstones and anvils to the ones excavated from the oldest layers of sediment, they found that the tools were similar in weight, materials, and wear patterns. This lack of change over 700 years is itself remarkable. Unlike human technology, which progressively innovates and improves, capuchin stone tool technology appears to be highly conservative. What works now is essentially what worked 7 centuries ago, and what will likely work 7 centuries from now. Fact 51. Wild bearded capuchins show sophisticated decision-making about their tool selection. They don't just pick up any stone and start hitting nuts with it. They select stones based on the specific requirements of the task. Studies have shown that capuchins choose heavier stones for harder nuts, and when processing cashew nuts at different stages of ripeness, which affects both hardness and the concentration of caustic chemicals in the nut's shell, they adjust their stone selection accordingly. Fresh cashew nuts are actually easier to crack, but contain more of a caustic, irritating liquid that can harm the monkey's skin, so capuchins use larger, heavier stones on fresh nuts, creating a striking motion that is more violent, but presumably splashes the caustic liquid away more effectively. Fact 52. Before using an unfamiliar stone as a hammer, capuchin monkeys engage in a testing protocol that is functionally identical to the way a human might test an unfamiliar tool. They pick up the stone, hold it, turn it over, tap it against the anvil with gentle strikes, and then reposition their hands before delivering the full force blow. Slow-motion video analysis has shown that capuchins rapidly shift their grip during the hammering motion, lifting the stone with the sides gripped, then repositioning their hands to the top of the stone for the final downswing, allowing for maximum force transfer. This motor sequence is remarkably similar to efficient human hammering technique.
Fact 53. In a study that compared the precision of capuchin nut cracking with human attempts at the same task, researchers found that monkeys and humans performed with similar accuracy in placing nuts in their most stable orientation before striking. Both species consistently oriented nuts with their flat, stable side down, a positioning that minimizes the chance of the nut rolling away under impact. Blindfolded humans performed at roughly the same accuracy as the capuchins, suggesting that both groups were relying on tactile feedback from their hands rather than visual guidance. Fact 54. In 2016, researchers reported that wild capuchin monkeys at Serra da Capivara were unintentionally producing sharp-edged stone flakes as a byproduct of their nut-cracking and stone-striking behavior. Flakes that are physically indistinguishable from some of the earliest deliberately produced stone flakes in the human archaeological record. This finding prompted serious discussion about whether some of the earliest hominid stone flakes found in African archaeological sites might actually have been produced accidentally by non-human primates. Fact 55. A landmark study published in Nature Neuroscience in April 2023 by researchers at the University of Pittsburgh provided dramatic new evidence for the cognitive sophistication of monkeys. Using a task called the knapsack problem, a classic combinatorial optimization challenge,
The researchers presented monkeys with complex problems requiring them to consider multiple factors simultaneously: costs, values, constraints, and select the best available combination of options. The monkeys solved these problems using sophisticated mathematical reasoning and efficient algorithms, finding optimal or near-optimal solutions rather than simply choosing the first option they encountered. The lead researcher, William Stauffer, described the finding as paradigm-shifting. Humans are not the only animals capable of slow and thoughtful deliberation. Our work shows that monkeys have a rich mental state that renders them capable of intelligent thinking. Fact 56. This study connected directly to Daniel Kahneman's influential model of two types of human thinking: fast thinking that is automatic and intuitive, and slow thinking that is deliberate, careful, and cognitively demanding. The Pitt researchers demonstrated that monkeys engage in the slow, deliberative mode of thinking, the kind that Kahneman associated with writing music, developing scientific hypotheses, and solving complex problems. This is not trivial. Slow, deliberative thinking is metabolically expensive and requires sustained cognitive effort. The fact that monkeys engage in it when facing complex optimization problems suggests that deliberation is not a uniquely human capacity. Fact 57. A Georgia State University study published in Scientific Reports found something counterintuitive. When presented with a problem that had a more efficient solution available, monkeys were significantly better than humans at discovering and using the shortcut. In the experiment, participants first learned a multi-step strategy for completing a task, and then were given the opportunity to use a more efficient single-step shortcut. Among monkeys, both capucins and rhesus macaques, 70% used the shortcut the very first time it was available. Among human participants, only one person out of 56 did so. Even after being told they shouldn't be afraid to try something new, many humans still persisted with the less efficient strategy. The researchers concluded that monkeys, freed from the social pressure and habit formation that can constrain human problem-solving, exhibit a form of cognitive flexibility that actually exceeds human performance in this specific context. Fact 58. Tool use in monkeys is not limited to capuchins. Wild macaques in coastal Thailand have been documented using stone tools to crack open oysters and other shellfish along rocky shorelines. Long-tailed macaques bring stones to oyster-bearing rocks, place the shellfish on a flat surface, and strike them with a hammerstone in a technique functionally similar to the capuchin nut-cracking behavior. This is a classic example of convergent evolution in cognition. Two distantly related monkey lineages independently arriving at the same tool use solution to access similar types of hard-shelled food.
Fact 59. Tools. At Kyoto University's Primate Research Institute in Japan, a group of Japanese macaques made headlines by escaping from an enclosure that researchers had designed to be escape-proof. The trees inside the enclosure had been pruned to just 6 feet tall, too short to allow the monkeys to leap over the 17-foot electric fence. But the macaques, confronting this problem with characteristic primate resourcefulness, discovered that the short, flexible trunks of the pruned trees could be bent and used as makeshift slingshots. The monkeys climbed the bent trunks, flexed them backward, and catapulted themselves up and over the fence. It was an improvised, creative, multi-step solution to a novel problem, exactly the kind of flexible problem-solving that defines genuine intelligence. Fact 60. Tools. White-faced capuchins in Panama have been observed using leaves as drinking cups, folding large leaves into cone shapes to collect water pooled in tree hollows and drink from them. This behavior is socially transmitted within groups and absent in neighboring groups, confirming it as a cultural tradition rather than a universal capuchin behavior. The ability to repurpose an object for a novel function, to see a leaf not as food or bedding but as a potential water container, requires a flexibility of thinking that is genuinely impressive. Let's pause and appreciate just for a moment the cumulative picture that's emerging. In one valley of Brazil, monkeys have been cracking nuts with stone tools for 7 centuries. In a Thai coastal forest, different macaques have independently arrived at nearly identical technology to access shellfish. In Panama, capuchins are fashioning cups from leaves. In Japan, a young female invented food washing, and within decades it had become a group tradition that persists to this day. In a California laboratory, monkeys are outperforming humans on cognitive flexibility tasks. In an enclosure in Kyoto, macaques are solving problems their keepers thought were unsolvable. This is not one isolated anecdote of surprising animal cleverness. This is a pattern, deep, consistent, and reproducible across species, across continents, across research contexts. Monkeys are smart. They are smart in ways that matter, and the closer we look, the more we find. Section 6. Culture, learning, and tradition. The idea that culture, the transmission of behaviors from one generation to the next through learning rather than genetics, is uniquely human, has been gradually, steadily dismantled by decades of careful primate research. Monkeys, it turns out, have traditions. They have behaviors that vary between neighboring groups of the same species living in similar environments, differences that can only be explained by the transmission of learned knowledge across generations. They have, in the deepest sense of the word, culture. Fact 59. The most famous example of cultural transmission in monkeys is the sweet potato washing behavior of Japanese macaques on Koshiyama Island in Japan. In 1952, researchers began provisioning a troop of Macaca fuscata, Japanese macaques, sometimes called snow monkeys, by leaving sweet potatoes on the beach for them to eat. The potatoes often landed in the sand, and the monkeys ate them grit and all. Then, in September 1953, a young female macaque named Emo, just about 18 months old, was observed doing something new. She took her potato to a nearby freshwater stream and washed the sand off before eating it. Fact 60. Emo's innovation spread. Over the following months and years, her playmates began washing potatoes. Her mother adopted the behavior. Gradually, the practice propagated through the troop, first among young animals, then through those young animals' family connections and social networks. By 1965, the majority of the troop was washing potatoes, but older males, who are peripheral to the main social group in Japanese macaque society and have fewer social interactions with the core group, largely did not adopt the behavior. The pattern of spread mapped almost perfectly onto the social network of the group. Fact 61. The story of Emo's innovation doesn't end with the first step. Over subsequent generations, the tradition evolved. The monkeys initially washed their potatoes in the freshwater stream, but over time, a new variation emerged. Monkeys began carrying their potatoes to the ocean instead, dipping them in salt water. They would take a bite, dip again, take another bite. A pattern of behavior that researchers interpreted as evidence that the monkeys had discovered they enjoyed the salty flavor and were actively seasoning their food. This is one of the very few examples of a non-human animal apparently modifying its behavior to enhance the flavor of food for purely gustatory reasons. Fact 62. The same troop of Koshiyama macaques independently developed another innovation. When researchers left wheat on the sandy beach, the monkeys initially picked up the individual grains one by one. Tedious and slow, then some individuals began throwing handfuls of the wheat-sand mixture into the water and skimming off the floating wheat as the heavier sand sank. This wheat placer mining behavior spread through the group by social transmission. In a pattern similar to the potato washing, a young monkey had invented an efficient food processing technique, and the group had adopted it through observation and learning. Fact 63. Behavioral traditions in monkey populations have been documented across multiple species and for a remarkably wide range of behaviors. Capuchin monkey traditions include not just stone tool use but also a peculiar set of social behaviors collectively called social conventions. In some Capuchin groups, for example, individuals maintain prolonged eye contact and insert their fingers into each other's noses or ears during social interactions, a behavior that serves no obvious hygiene function but appears to function as a social bonding ritual. Different Capuchin groups in the same region practice different versions of these social conventions, and young animals learn them through observation of older group members. Fact 64. Social learning in monkeys has a strong element of selectivity. Young Capuchins, for example, don't just watch any older monkey and imitate whatever they do. They preferentially watch more skillful individuals. Studies by Eduardo Ottoni and colleagues found that young Capuchins' close observation of nut cracking is heavily concentrated on the most proficient crackers in the group, not simply the nearest or highest ranking ones. This watch the best strategy is a form of model-based learning where quality of the demonstrator matters, a cognitive sophistication that ensures the skills learned are actually worth learning. Fact 65. Research published in 2023 found that wild monkeys experiencing more competition for food learned efficient new foraging techniques significantly faster than monkeys who faced less competition. In the study, a group of monkeys was provided with a food reward that needed to be retrieved from a box. Individuals who regularly faced competition from dominant group members who had most to lose from slow food acquisition learned the efficient retrieval technique far faster than individuals who rarely competed for food. This suggests that social pressures create cognitive urgency that accelerates learning, that the social environment shapes not just what monkeys learn but how quickly they learn it. Fact 66. Infant Japanese macaques who received more physical handling and touch in their first weeks of life showed better performance on cognitive tasks and more positive responses to novelty when tested later in development. The parallels to human developmental psychology are striking. In humans, early physical contact and warm caregiving are associated with better cognitive outcomes and reduced anxiety responses to novel situations. The biological mechanisms underlying this pattern, probably involving early shaping of the stress response system and its interactions with learning, appear to be deeply conserved across primates. Fact 67. Vervet monkey groups have been shown to conform to local social norms even when those norms are arbitrary. In a remarkable experiment, researchers trained adult vervet monkeys in two neighboring groups to prefer different colors of food. One group learned to eat pink food and avoid blue food, while the other learned the opposite. When young males emigrated from their birth groups and joined new groups as vervet males normally do at adolescence, they quickly adopted the food color preferences of their new group, even though their own individual experience had taught them the opposite preference. Social conformity overrode individual learning. Fact 68. This conformity behavior has been observed in multiple monkey species and appears to function as a mechanism for rapidly learning the local rules of a new social group. What is acceptable? What is preferred? What experienced group members seem to do. For a newly arrived immigrant male, adopting local norms quickly probably reduces social conflict and facilitates acceptance by established group members. But the mechanism required is genuinely impressive. The animal must observe what others are doing, recognize it as a local norm, and suppress its own prior learning in favor of social conformity. Let's linger here for a moment, because what's being described in these cultural findings is something genuinely profound. The defining feature of culture, what makes it distinct from genetics, is that it is information about how to live that is stored in minds rather than in DNA. It is learned, not inherited.
It can change within a single generation. It can be invented by one individual and then spread to hundreds of others who had no direct access to the original discovery. It can persist for centuries after the original inventor is dead. Capuchin stone tool use in Brazil has persisted for roughly 100 generations of monkeys. Imo's sweet potato washing on Koshima Island began in 1953 and is still being practiced today by monkeys who are the great-great-great-grandchildren of Imo's playmates. These traditions are not written down. They are not encoded in DNA. They live in the behavioral patterns of individual animals who learn from other animals, who learn from other animals. An unbroken chain of transmission stretching back through time, maintained by nothing more permanent than the minds and muscles of living creatures. That is culture, and it is not uniquely human.
Fact 69. Culture. Social traditions in monkeys can also involve the transmission of preferences and aversions through what researchers call stimulus enhancement. Situations where one animal's attention to a particular object or food item draws the attention of observers. When an experienced adult monkey shows familiarity and comfort with a food item, young animals watching are more likely to approach and taste it themselves. This mechanism requires no deliberate teaching. The experienced animal is simply eating, and the observers draw the natural conclusion that the food is safe and good. Yet the effect is genuine cultural transmission. Preferences and behaviors spread from individual to group through the medium of observation. Fact 70. Culture. The question of whether monkey cultures are cumulative, whether traditions build on themselves over time to become more sophisticated as human cultures do, is still actively debated. Human technology progresses. The stone tools of 100,000 years ago are cruder than those of 50,000 years ago, which are cruder than those of 10,000 years ago. Capuchin stone tools appear not to follow this pattern, as we noted. The tools used 700 years ago are essentially identical to the tools in use today. But the absence of cumulative culture in monkeys may reflect limits on their ability to learn by imitation rather than observation, rather than a fundamental absence of the social learning mechanisms that make cumulative culture possible. This is one of the most active and contested questions in comparative cognitive science today. Section 7. The moral life of monkeys: fairness, empathy, and cooperation. Here, things get truly interesting, because when we start asking whether monkeys have something like a sense of fairness, something like empathy, something like a moral response to injustice, we enter territory that was, until quite recently, considered exclusively human. And what the research has found in this area is genuinely, deeply thought-provoking. Fact 71. One of the most influential experiments in all of primate behavioral research is the Monkeys Reject Unequal Pay study by Sarah Brosnan and Franz de Waal, published in the journal Nature in 2003. In this study, pairs of capuchin monkeys were placed in adjacent enclosures where they could see each other and interact with a human experimenter. Each monkey was given a small stone, which they could exchange with the experimenter for a food reward. In the baseline condition, both monkeys received a piece of cucumber for their stone, and both were perfectly willing to perform this exchange repeatedly. Fact 72. Then the conditions changed. One monkey continued to receive cucumber, but its partner now received a grape, a much more desirable food. The monkey receiving cucumber immediately noticed the difference. Its response was striking. It refused to complete the exchange. Some individuals threw the cucumber back at the experimenter. Others slapped the testing surface. Some monkeys simply turned away and refused to participate further. The mere sight of their partner receiving a more valuable reward for the same effort caused them to reject what had previously been an entirely acceptable outcome. Fact 73.
the researchers ruled out several simpler explanations. The negative reaction wasn't simply because grapes were visible. Monkeys remained willing to work for cucumber even when grapes were clearly visible on the table, as long as their partner was also receiving cucumber. The reaction was specifically triggered by seeing their partner receive better treatment for equal effort. The researchers concluded that this response represents an evolutionary precursor to inequity aversion, the same fundamental impulse that drives human responses to perceived unfairness. Fact 74. In a particularly revealing variation of the experiment, the partner who received the grape sometimes got it without doing any work at all, receiving it for free while the other monkey had to exchange a stone. This effort asymmetry condition produced even stronger negative responses than the basic unequal pay condition. The monkey who worked and received less reacted more intensely when its partner received better treatment without any effort than when the partner had at least exchanged a stone too. Even in a simple primate, the moral intuition that undeserved rewards are more offensive than merely unequal ones appears to exist. Fact 75. Franz de Waal famously described the Capuchin reaction to unequal pay as looking very much like the Occupy Wall Street protests, a visceral emotional rejection of systemic unfairness rather than a calculated strategic response. One philosopher wrote to de Waal to protest that it was impossible that monkeys had a sense of fairness because fairness was invented during the French Revolution. De Waal found this remarkable, the idea that a moral intuition of this fundamental kind could be the product of a political event that occurred less than 250 years ago in a lineage ours that shares tens of millions of years of primate evolutionary history with capuchins.
Fact 76. Subsequent work replicated the basic finding with chimpanzees and extended it in an important direction. Chimps who received the better reward, the grape, while their partner got cucumber, sometimes refused to accept the grape unless their partner also received one. This advantageous inequity aversion, rejecting an unfair advantage rather than just an unfair disadvantage, is closer to the human sense of fairness, which responds negatively to inequity in both directions. Capuchins appear primarily sensitive to disadvantageous inequity, getting less than others, while chimpanzees show some sensitivity to advantageous inequity, getting more than others as well. Fact 77. Research on rhesus macaques has demonstrated that these monkeys can perform basic addition. In experiments using computer displays, macaques were shown sets of objects on a screen and trained to respond based on the numerical quantity. They could reliably judge which of two sets contained more objects, and further studies showed they could grasp the concept of addition through calculation rather than just memorization, adding the quantities of two sequential sets and correctly choosing the option that matched the sum. Fact 78. Metacognition, the ability to think about one's own thinking, to monitor one's own knowledge and uncertainty, was long considered a uniquely human cognitive capacity, but research has found evidence of metacognitive abilities in several monkey species. In experiments where monkeys could choose to bet on their own responses, wagering whether their answer to a task was correct, rhesus macaques and capuchins showed patterns consistent with genuine uncertainty monitoring. They were more likely to bet high when they had performed well on a task and more likely to decline to bet when their performance was uncertain, suggesting they had some access to their own internal states of knowledge and confidence. Fact 79. Monkeys show what researchers call emotional contagion, the tendency to pick up on and respond to the emotional states of nearby individuals. When a group member shows signs of distress, nearby monkeys often become agitated themselves. This is not the same as full empathy, the ability to consciously represent and share another's subjective experience, but it represents the building blocks of empathy.
and it is likely the same basic mechanism from which human empathy evolved. Fact 80. Studies of social hierarchy and cooperation in macaques have found that in groups with despotic social structures, where high-ranking individuals monopolize resources aggressively, dominant individuals are often more generous than subordinates in food-sharing experiments. This counterintuitive finding reflects the fact that dominant individuals can afford to be generous. Sharing costs them less, relatively speaking, than sharing would cost a low-ranking animal. Generosity in this context is a form of status display. The parallels to human philanthropy among the wealthy are uncomfortable but fascinating. Fact 81. Moral. Common marmosets, small New World monkeys that live in family groups with cooperative breeding, have demonstrated genuine altruistic food sharing in controlled laboratory experiments. In studies by Judith Burkhardt and colleagues at the University of Zurich, marmosets were given the opportunity to pull a tray of food within reach of a partner who could not otherwise access it, at no benefit to themselves. The marmosets pulled the tray for their partners at rates far above chance, and they pulled more readily for familiar group members than for strangers. This is what researchers call other regarding preferences, a genuine concern for another individual's welfare that cannot be reduced to self-interest. Interestingly, this altruistic tendency appears to be related to the cooperative breeding system marmosets use. Because all adult group members help raise infants together, there may be strong evolutionary pressure to maintain a pro-social orientation toward group members generally. The evolution of human altruism may have followed a similar pathway. In species where cooperative child-rearing is important, selection may favor broader pro-social tendencies across the group.
Fact 82. Moral. Research on macaque monkeys has revealed that specific neurons in the anterior cingulate cortex, a brain region strongly implicated in empathy and social emotion in humans, fire both when a monkey receives a reward and when it watches another monkey receive a reward. The same neural machinery that processes one's own reward experience is partially shared with the processing of others' reward experiences. This neural overlap is thought to be a biological substrate for empathy, and its presence in macaques suggests that the neural basis for human empathy has deep evolutionary roots in our primate lineage. Fact 83. Moral. Deception. Deliberately conveying false information to mislead a competitor has been documented in capuchin monkeys in naturalistic settings. In situations where dominant individuals are approaching food sources, subordinate capuchins have been observed giving false alarm calls, vocalizations typically used to signal the presence of a predator, apparently in order to cause the dominant to flee and abandon food that the subordinate can then claim. This is tactical deception, using a communication signal in a context for which it was not designed, specifically to manipulate another's behavior for selfish gain. It requires a theory of mind, at least to the extent of understanding that another individual's behavior can be changed by information they receive. The existence of deception is actually interesting evidence for intelligence rather than bad behavior. An animal can only deliberately deceive if it has a sufficiently sophisticated model of other minds to understand that providing false information will change what another individual believes and therefore does. Deception is cognitively demanding, which is why it is relatively rare in the animal kingdom, and its presence in monkeys is notable. Fact 84. Spider monkeys represent one of the most dramatic examples of arboreal adaptation among all primates. Their bodies are literally built around the canopy, long limbs for reaching, long hook-like fingers for grasping, a prehensile tail that functions as an anchor, and a shoulder structure that allows a range of arm motion approaching that of the apes.
When a spider monkey moves at speed through a forest canopy, it moves differently from any other monkey, flowing through the branches in long looping arcs, its body swinging and counter-swinging with the fluid economy of a pendulum. Spider monkeys are also notable for their fission-fusion social structure, large groups of 20 to 30 or more individuals that regularly divide into smaller temporary subgroups for daily foraging and then reconvene. Managing a fission-fusion society requires keeping track of multiple relationships and the current location of many individuals, a cognitive challenge that researchers believe selects for enhanced social intelligence. Fact 85. The pygmy marmoset, Cebuea pygmea, packs an extraordinary amount of behavioral complexity into the smallest possible package. Despite weighing less than 150 grams, pygmy marmosets live in complex social groups, maintain long-term pair bonds between breeding adults, share infant care cooperatively among all group members, including non-breeding helpers, and have a vocal repertoire that extends into ultrasonic frequencies beyond human hearing. Their specialized diet of tree gum requires them to gouge holes in bark using their specialized lower incisors, teeth that grow in a comb-like structure uniquely suited to piercing tree tissue. Pygmy marmosets return to the same trees repeatedly, monitoring and maintaining their gum wells over time. Fact 86. Gelada baboons are sometimes called bleeding heart baboons because of the vivid red bare skin patch on the chest of both males and females, a patch that changes in appearance with reproductive state. In most primates, sexual swellings or colorations are found on the hindquarters, a region easily visible to other animals when a female is walking in a quadrupedal group. But geladas spend most of their time sitting on the ground, eating grass. Their hindquarters are pressed against the ground most of the day. So over evolutionary time, the signal migrated to the chest, a location that is visible while sitting. This is a beautiful example of natural selection reshaping anatomy in response to ecological circumstances.
Fact 87. The owl monkey, Otis pippin, is the only nocturnal monkey in the world. All other monkey species are primarily active during the day. The owl monkey hunts, forages, and socializes at night. Its enormous eyes are adaptations for low-light vision, and its eyes lack the specialized pit, the fovea that most primates use for high-acuity daytime vision. All monkeys are the only monkeys in which males provide substantial parenting effort. All monkey fathers carry infants almost as much as mothers do, and this high level of paternal care is thought to be related to the nocturnal lifestyle, which may make monogamous pair bonds more stable and paternal confidence higher. Fact 88. The golden lion tamarin, Leontopithecus rosalia, is one of the most spectacularly colored small primates in the world, with a mane of golden fur surrounding its face that gives it a striking leonine appearance. Native to the Atlantic coastal forests of southeastern Brazil, one of the most threatened ecosystems on Earth, golden lion tamarins were reduced to fewer than 200 individuals in the wild by the 1970s. Intensive conservation efforts, including captive breeding and reintroduction programs, have brought their numbers up to roughly 3,000 in the wild today. The Golden Lion Tamarin Conservation Program is widely cited as one of the landmark success stories of primate conservation, demonstrating that careful management, habitat restoration, and public engagement can reverse the trajectory of a critically endangered species. Fact 89. The snub-nosed monkeys of China, genus Rhinopithecus, are among the most cold-adapted of all primates, found in coniferous mountain forests at elevations above 3,000 meters. Their short, upturned noses,
so flat that the nostrils open almost forward, are thought to reduce heat loss through the nose in extremely cold conditions. They have dense, fluffy fur and thick undercoats, and their coloration is often striking. The golden snub-nosed monkey has brilliant orange-gold flanks and a blue face, making it one of the most visually dramatic primates in Asia. Fact 90. Uakari monkeys from the Amazon basin have bare, deeply red faces, a coloration that serves as a health indicator. The redness comes from blood vessels close to the surface of the skin, and the brightness of the coloration is correlated with the individual's health and immune status. Pale-faced uakaris tend to be sick or parasitized, and potential mates select partners with the brightest red faces as a signal of genetic quality and current health. It is, in essence, a face that tells you everything about its owner's well-being. Fact 90. Uakari monkeys from the Amazon basin have bare, deeply red faces, a coloration that serves as a health indicator. The redness comes from blood vessels close to the surface of the skin, and the brightness of the coloration is correlated with the individual's health and immune status. Pale-faced uakaris tend to be sick or parasitized, and potential mates select partners with the brightest red faces as a signal of genetic quality and current health. It is, in essence, a face that tells you everything about its owner's well-being. Fact 91. Species. The emperor tamarin, a small New World monkey native to the southwestern Amazon, is named with affectionate irreverence after the German Emperor Wilhelm II. The person who named it thought its long, drooping white mustache bore a remarkable resemblance to the emperor's famously elaborate facial hair. Emperor tamarins live in small family groups and have a cooperative breeding system similar to other tamarins, the dominant female breeds, and all group members help care for twins, which are common. Despite being barely larger than a squirrel, emperor tamarins have complex vocalizations, maintain long-term social bonds, and navigate multi-layered rainforest canopies with extraordinary agility. Fact 92. Species. The black and white colobus monkey of sub-Saharan Africa is perhaps the most dramatically colored of the African monkeys, jet black with sweeping capes of long white fur along its sides, and tail that can span over 1 meter in length. Colobus monkeys are highly specialized leaf eaters with complex multi-chambered stomachs that allow bacterial fermentation to break down the cellulose in leaves. Unlike most monkeys, which are active and quick-moving, colobus monkeys tend to be relatively sedentary, spending long periods resting while their complex digestive systems process their low-calorie leafy meals. They have vestigial or absent thumbs, an unusual reduction in what is typically a highly functional primate trait, which is thought to be an adaptation for moving through branches without snagging their long fingers in the foliage.
Fact 93. Species. The Hamadryas baboon is unique among the baboon species in having a one-male harem social structure. A dominant male who maintains exclusive breeding access to a group of females and their young. This is unusual for baboons, which in most species live in multi-male, multi-female troops. Hamadryas baboon society has an elaborate nested structure. Several harems form a clan, several clans form a band, and several bands form a troop that travels together. The social intelligence required to navigate this multi-level social world, maintaining relationships across multiple nested groups, is extraordinary and has made Hamadryas baboon social organization a focus of cognitive research. Fact 94. Today, approximately 60% of primate species, including many monkey species, are classified as threatened with extinction. The primary drivers of this crisis are habitat destruction, particularly deforestation for agriculture, hunting for bushmeat, and the illegal wildlife trade. The forests that most monkey species depend on are being cleared at rates that the animal's reproductive biology cannot compensate for. Most monkey species produce only one offspring per year, and many take years to reach reproductive maturity. The result is that populations cannot recover quickly enough to offset the losses driven by human activity. Fact 95. In many parts of their range, monkeys play crucial ecological roles as seed dispersers. Many fruit-eating species consume fruits whole, travel considerable distances, and deposit seeds in their feces far from the parent plant, effectively planting the next generation of trees. In forests where large frugivores have been hunted out, plant communities shift. The trees whose seeds require gut passage through large animals become rarer, and the forest composition changes. Monkeys, in other words, are not passive inhabitants of their forests. They actively shape them. Fact 96. The cultural importance of monkeys in human societies worldwide is vast and ancient. In Hinduism, the monkey god Hanuman is one of the most beloved and widely worshipped deities, a figure of immense strength, devoted loyalty, and selfless service. In Chinese mythology and literature, the Monkey King Sun Wukong is one of the most iconic characters in the entire tradition, featured in the classic 16th-century novel Journey to the West as a figure of trickster intelligence, supernatural power, and hard-won wisdom. Monkey imagery appears in the art of Mesoamerican cultures, in Japanese folk tradition, in West African mythology. These animals have found their way into the deepest layers of human cultural imagination on nearly every continent where they live. Fact 97. Despite decades of legal restrictions and international agreements, the illegal pet trade in monkeys continues to threaten populations across the tropics. In the United States alone, thousands of monkeys are kept as pets, animals typically removed from the wild as infants, often after their mothers were killed and raised in conditions that deny them everything their highly social nature requires. Monkeys kept as pets frequently suffer severe psychological damage, developing stereotypic behaviors, chronic stress, and social dysfunction that persists even when they are eventually rescued and brought to sanctuaries. The impulse to own a monkey as a pet comes usually from a genuine affection for them, but the reality of what that life means for the animal is the precise opposite of what affection should produce. Fact 98. Conservation efforts for monkeys have had notable successes. The black lion tamarin was once thought to be extinct before being rediscovered in 1970. The mariqui, Brazil's largest primate, sometimes called the woolly spider monkey, has been the subject of decades of careful protection and advocacy, and while still endangered, its populations have stabilized in some areas. The work being done by field researchers, local communities, and conservation organizations in these places is some of the most important and difficult work happening anywhere in biology today. It is worth pausing here to think about what it would mean to lose these animals. It would not just be the loss of the species themselves, though that of course would be a tragedy in its own right, the permanent silencing of millions of years of evolutionary elaboration. It would also mean the loss of what they carry within them, traditions maintained across centuries, calls learned from mothers by daughters who will one day teach their own daughters, the specific knowledge of which trees to visit and in what season, the cultural knowledge of how to crack a nut or wash a potato, that has passed through 100 generations of living minds and exists nowhere else on Earth except in those minds. When a tradition-bearing animal species goes extinct, we lose not just the animals, but the knowledge. We lose the library. Fact 99. Conservation. Research on monkey cognition has consistently revealed that many of the abilities once thought to be uniquely human have roots in our shared primate ancestry. The capacity for social learning, the ability to recognize and respond to injustice, the use of semantic signals that refer to things in the external world. deliberative multi-factor decision-making, cultural transmission across generations, metacognitive monitoring of uncertainty, tool use calibrated to the properties of the task. None of these are uniquely human. All of them exist in some form in our monkey relatives, reminding us that human intelligence did not emerge from nothing. It is the elaboration of cognitive capacities that were already present, in simpler forms, in the ancestors we share with these animals. That recognition is one of the most humbling and beautiful insights that science has ever produced, and it grows richer and more detailed with every field season, every laboratory study, and every patient hour of observation that researchers spend in forests around the world. Fact 100. Final, perhaps the most mind-blowing monkey fact of all is this: the qualities we find most remarkable about monkeys, their curiosity, their problem-solving drive, their social sophistication, their capacity for something like fairness and something like compassion, are not strange alien abilities that happen to evolve in a different branch of the primate tree. They are the same qualities, in different proportions and different forms, that we find in ourselves. When a young capuchin monkey in Brazil sits patiently by a stone anvil, picks up a hammer rock that weighs nearly as much as she does, and drives it down onto a palm nut with a precise, confident blow she learned by watching her mother, she is doing something that connects directly to every human who has ever learned a skill by watching an expert, and then practiced it, and refined it, and passed it on. The long thread of primate intelligence runs through millions of years, from the small, curious ancestors in ancient forests, through every lineage that survived and adapted and found new ways of solving old problems, all the way to this moment, a sleeping human in a darkened room at the end of a long day, drifting toward dreams with the sound of something beautiful and true settling quietly into their mind. A final thought before sleep: the world tonight is full of monkeys. In the rainforests of Brazil, bearded capuchins are finishing their evening routines, settling into sleeping trees as the light fades through the canopy. In the mountains of central Japan, snow macaques are sinking their tired bodies into hot springs, their faces serene in the rising steam. In Gabon's Lope National Park, hundreds of mandrills, dazzling, enormous, painted in colors that seem almost too vivid to be real, are moving through the darkening forest in a group so large it seems to bend the forest around it. In the Atlantic forest, fragments of southeastern Brazil, golden lion tamarins are pressed together in a family group, their golden fur glowing faintly in the last of the evening light. In the Himalayas, rhesus macaques are settling into sleep in rocky niches above the snowline, their breath rising in small plumes of vapor into the cold mountain air. And in all those forests, in all those groups, the traditions are alive. Young animals are watching older ones. Memories are being stored in small, warm minds. Social bonds are being renewed through the quiet language of grooming and proximity. Somewhere in a Brazilian forest, a young capuchin is watching her mother crack a nut, studying the grip, studying the weight of the stone, studying the angle of the blow, and learning something her descendants may still be doing 700 years from now. That thread of knowledge passed from one living mind to another through generations too numerous to count is one of the most beautiful things in the world. Think about that as you drift off. Think about how old the intelligence is that you're carrying in your own primate body. How many hundreds of millions of years of refinement went into the hands that pulled your blanket close, the eyes that are closing now, the social brain that runs quietly in the background even as you sleep, maintaining the models of the people you love and the world you navigate. You are the current endpoint of a very long process. So are they. Sleep well. Dream of forests and the warm, familiar sounds of others close by. If you found this journey through the world of monkey science relaxing and rewarding, please consider hitting the like button. It really does help this channel reach people who might need a quiet, science-filled evening.
And if you'd like to make nights like this a regular part of your life, subscribing to Science Lullaby means you'll always have somewhere to come when the world gets too loud and you need something worth knowing to carry you gently into sleep. Thank you so much for spending your evening here. The curiosity you brought to this, the willingness to learn and wonder, and let the world be bigger than it was when you sat down, that's the best thing any of us can do. See you next time.